In the process of installing and cleaning the air condition parts after the collision has been fixed on that side, what we're going to notice in here, see all those paper towel, that's what you're most likely going to have on your vehicle, since it's going to be pulling that air out from there. And that's the cowl. On this side, you're going to need to check on the floor, make sure that it's clean, washing it out in the back there. Have a little drain hole, and that's the ECU. So we're getting ready in process to fix all these stuff back together and clean the inside of all the dirt, contaminants for over 20 years. So just want to show you what's involved here in taking apart the dashboard. You have a bar that goes from here to that end. So let's take a look at reassembling this part here. This is where the fan will be installed, and this part here is on the outside. It will pull fresh air in from here. So when you hit that recycle button on the air conditioner, that will be this button here. When you hit this button, it will activate this actuator to open and close this door for fresh air or recirculation. Then we have this one here, turns on the air condition, and we have hot and cold, which is on another box. I'm going to show you when we're doing the installation. And we also have the vent selection, which is on the same box with the hot and cold selection. Then we have the fan. Now on the fan, we also have this blower resistor. So if you turn the switch sometime to 1 and it operates the fan, then it goes to 2 and the fan does not operate, most likely will be this. And let's say 3 operate, 4 operate, but it's not working on 2. This is the problem. The fan, blower motor fan resistor. And that's located on the back here, which is going to be very difficult to get since it's going to be up against this firewall. And this is mounted like this. It's on the bottom there. So let's clean up in here. This is what you're going to have in your vehicle. You're going to want to have this clean. You don't really need to remove this part because that's where the vents, I should say the pipes, the plumbing for the air conditioning is. And in the same box, which we just removed, is going to have the heater core in it. So we're going to take a look at all that. During the work procedure for this installation, you'll need to disconnect the negative cable battery to prevent any short. Now this is where you're going to need to disconnect the high pressure, this is the high pressure, and the low pressure air condition line to the evaporator that connects to here, and that sits right in here through these ports, and next to it here would be the heater core. To detach this evaporator box from the firewall, you simply have to disconnect these 2 plumbing and pull the box away from the wall. There is no fasteners or bolts that holds this unit to the firewall. You also have to pay attention to this temperature sensor. It exits here and it's connected into the harness. Now will be a good time to get a test on that temperature sensor on the evaporator core, looking for a ohms resistance test. You could also see that resistance test on the screen for various temperature. Another thing that's also important to this air condition is you could use this same testing material. You can use this same testing method for knowing if the evaporator is getting cold enough for maximum air condition efficiency. Ready for fitting the evaporator core, you're going to need these 2 weather protector that goes around the hose. attention to this drain spout that must be installed into this garment for dumping the air-conditioned water on the floor. So these weather stripping garment is going to be installed into the firewall once this evaporator is placed in location and supported by some form of support to hold it in place while the plumbing is connected. With the evaporator plumbing extending out of the firewall, now is the best time for placing the weatherproofing, waterproofing in location. With the weather strip garment fit in location, then the line with new rubber O-ring can be installed and just temporarily fitted fully seated like that until the fasteners are ready for connection. I look at the inside, making sure that weather stripping is sealed. Now it's time for us to install this fan turbine housing, which also have this recirculation door on it. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to place this screen, this wire mesh screen, on the inlet that will go up in here. So next time, if someone should place paper towel in there, when the air conditioner is turned on, it will not get sucked in the inlet and clog the evaporator. That's the purpose of this mesh, is to prevent any objects or bugs from getting into the system and clogging that evaporator. Now to install this, we have 1, 2, 3, and that will be number 3, 1 and 2. Installation of the blower motor, fan resistor, and the recirculation door actuator motor is a must before installing this fan turbine housing into its firewall location against the evaporator box. Positioning of that actuator for the recirculation door is very important, so you need to make sure you place it in order. Also, this part here will cause malfunction with the fan, causing it not to fail and sometimes fail on certain speeds. This will be the best time for installing this turbine housing, because you cannot install these components with the housing in location. Let's take a look at installing the fan turbine housing. What's important is you want to make sure you maintain this seal on the inlet. This is to make sure that you're going to get fresh air, and the air from inside is not going to recirculate from here. So we have 3 points of installation, this top and 2 on the bottom, 1 here, 1 here, and over here. So we're going to have to move this back, getting it out of the way for placing this in location. It's important at this point is you want to make sure that the cushion, the sponge, is sealed once this turbine housing is installed against the evaporator core box. With the housing support on the evaporator, had to detach it from its mount. Have to place this screen in location between the metal. Once the fan turbine housing is completely bolted in support and the evaporator box is mounted with these two bolts onto the fan turbine housing, you could remove the support that was holding the box up for you and now begin to install the mix control box, and that will be the control for the air and the vent, the floor, and the defrost. It's now time for us to reinstall the plug for the recirculation door and also the plug for the fan blower motor resistor. At the same time, when the fan is going to be installed, you want to make sure you have the circulation tube for the fan for circulating air from the turbine housing into the fan, because this is going to allow the fan motor to remain cool in operation by using air from the air conditioned duct. So this will have to get placed like that. Then we have 3 Phillips screws that holds it in location. This is the 3 nut for holding the turbine fan turbine housing. These are the 3 screws that holds the fan in place, and this is the recirculation hose for cooling the fan motor. That's the brush, and this is the plug for the fan resistor that always must. And that complete the installation. Here are the 2 bolts that holds the evaporator supported onto the fan turbine housing. Let's get ready to install the mix door box. With the fan turbine housing completely installed against the evaporator core box, we can now get ready to install. Evaporator installation will be completed by connecting the high pressure and low pressure refrigerant line, and when doing so, you want to use, the factory don't recommend that you do this, a Teflon tape for wrapping the threads. That's something like this. This is going to prevent the aluminum from oxidizing and later on preventing it from becoming damaged in the event it should need to be disconnected. So the Teflon tape is a security purpose. This will be torqued to factory specification. Here we have the mix control box that connects to the evaporator box, and you will notice the heater core. This is where the hot water circulates into so you can get heat in the car. It's located in the mix control box. Now, the problem with this heater control, or I should say heater core, is that it will become corrosive on the inside. It will also leak. The gasket that goes around here will also leak sometime. So these are the connectors that connects to the heater core and will exit the firewall. This is something that we're not using right now since the vehicle is in tropical climate. We don't want any hot air or heat in the air conditioned duct because we only want air condition. Now you can see I've done some repairs because the vehicle had a collision on that end and push on the plastic and caused a little damage on the plastic that was repairable. Let's take a look at the damage, the crack on the plastic there. You can see it was stitched together with a few threads of copper wire, and then an epoxy was placed on it for bonding the crack, fixed as it would or was before it was broken. Repairable. Also down here, that's where it will be supported on that support. On that side will be on this side, and this you can see was really damaged in a bad, actually a way that you could reuse it, but using that plastic bond we're able to fix it back into location. Now here's another part that got smashed. Since this side is facing the driver's side, the impact caused this breakage that you see here. That's repair. And it also broke this lever that controls the flap for the duct, for the vent. And what I use here is a cotter pin and a little piece of plastic. I just glued it together with the bond, the cold well, and it's now perfect. So I could get the air condition and all the vents to work, operating it from this control panel, which you already know. So that's the cable that will get clipped into there and connect onto the lever. Let's go ahead and install the mix control box to the firewall, deleting the air condition heater core, or I should say the climate control heater core. The evaporator mix control box fit in its location. You will see those two screws are associated with it. This one here, that one, and that one on the rear for holding the box fixed against the firewall, making sure its seal connection with its cushioning, the sponge, is sealed with the evaporator. Now we can go ahead and place the bottom airflow directional. What we have here is these two pins in the rear that has to get installed in the rear, and then the front here could be clipped and locked in position. What's convenient about this floor directional flow panel is that it places cool air on the ECU for keeping it cool on a hot day. The ECU can be relocated from the floor in this direction location, preventing it from getting wet in the event the vehicle should go off-road and water should enter in the floor, which is not likely because the vehicle is very sealed. That's just some extra information that you should know. Now it's time for us to replace that crash bar, that reinforcement bar, and place the dashboard in location. With the cross member support mounted for the dashboard and the passenger side airbag, you can see where we have made modification for rebending the bar to restore a factory fit like you see here. Now it's time for us to complete the lower half and install the top. One thing that you need to know is that in the event you need to change the heater core, you do not need to remove this bar or the dashboard. You simply need to remove the glove box here, remove the evaporator box, and you will be able to gain access to the heater core heat exchange radiator. With the dashboard test fitted against its cross member bar, we're now going to take a look at where the fasteners have to go. Those are 2, and there are also 3 alignment for the dashboard. We also have one here, and when we look under here, we see we have the mount for the airbag, and these screw alignments are off since we had that collision that will be rendered later on. This bracket here will have to get replaced, and it bolts the bottom bracket over there, and that side also